welcome back to my class. You know that I am Halim teacher and junior lecturer of Eleveth High School and Junior College. So here in today's class we are discussing the chapter 7, which is dealing with the civic subject of second year, and chapter name is Social Political Movements and Environmental Struggles in Telangana. So here in this chapter we are starting with the Telangana Peasant Arm Struggle here. So the contradictions existing within the socio-economic structures of Indian state and the contributed to the birth of several peasants and uprising in different parts of the country. So here the Telangana Peasant Arm Struggle, which was led by the communist, was the first independent try in the history of Indian communist movement that took place between the 1946 and 1951 in Telangana region. So here the former princely states of Hyderabad was a multilingual state consisting of 3 linguistic areas, namely Telangana with 8 districts and Marathwada with 5 districts and Karnataka with 3 districts here. So the Telangana region is comprised almost half of the area of total state. So here the beginning and the growth of the Telangana insurrections that the communists had built a strong party based in Nalgonda and Warangal districts. So here the presence of a number of landlords owing the large estates extending over thousands of acres of land had facilitated and the expansion of the communists in these areas between 1942 and 1946. Here the influence of the communists over the peasants and the tenants and the cultivators and the landless laborers grew steadily. So here the several incidents which take place between the 1947 and 1950 had the communicated into a major peasants uprising. So here the period of upsurge could be a conventionally in 3 phases, and they are the first phase, which is the mass resistance and upsurge, and the second phase, which is liberalization struggle, and so here, and the third phase, that is armed revolt. So after these phases, now we will discuss about the Dalit movement. Here the caste system occupies a special place in determining the socio-economic and the political status exactly of an individual in our country. So here it is a very special in its content, and it is one of its kind that in the world. So here in fact the caste system in which a deeper than the religious and the class divisions. So here religion and class can undergo change, but one's caste remain unchanging and static category here. So the people belonging to a weaker communities and socially and economically backward sections are often referred to Dalits here. So here Dalits movement are the struggle against the social repression and the economic exploitation which have been continued for the centuries, and they are India social system, Dalits and Dalit movement, and Dalit movement in 19th and 20th centuries, and Dalit movement in Hyderabad state at Nizam's period, and Dalits and Telangana peasant struggle, and the phases of Dalit movements in Andhra Pradesh, that is post independence period, and the Dalit movement in Telangana contemporary trends. So here all these are the struggles against the social repression and the economic exploitation of Dalits. Now we will see about the tribal movements. Here the Adivasis and the tribals are the integral part of the Indian society and have a unique system of culture and distinct customs, medicines and panchayats with distinct identity. Exactly. So here the Adivasis and the tribals are inhabitant of forest areas and the hill tracts. So here these communities were autonomous till the advent of British colonial rule in India. So here the tribal societies in modern age witness many challenges and has resulted in many tribal uprisings. So here throughout the country, in the name of the forest regulations and the cultural invention by the non-tribals and the genuine tribals were displaced with insecurity. So here the traditionally the tribal people followed their customary law, and the only authority on them was their respective tribal chief. So here they were generally peace loving people in total harmony with their natural surroundings and never yielded to any regulatory measures to determine their way of life exactly. So the here tribal areas are rich in the natural resources, and they are the poor, and their lives are caught in a various circle of injustice, betrayal and exploitation. So nearly 5 lakh tribal families are living in the scheduled villages of the Telangana state, and here the total scheduled tribes, that is STs, population in 10 districts of Telangana is 27 lakh 50,000, comprising the 9% of entire Telangana population. So here the original Adivasis, inhabitant of the forest and inhabitants of the forest, that is the Adh, Koyas, Gonds and the Nakapudu and the Kondareddy, Kollam, Chenchu and Toti and Manevar and Pradhan here. So they have become a minority since 1977 when the Lambadas, who were historically a nomadic pastoral community. So they were noticed as a ST in Andhra Pradesh, and this led to a large influx of Lambadas for the Maharashtra to Telangana area. Here the movements and the revolts are done by the tribals, like the historical background of the tribals in Telangana and Ramaji Gonth revolt from 1857 to 1860 and Komaram Bhim revolt, that is from 1940 to 1950, and issues of tribal movement and tribals Telangana movement. So after all these tribal movements, now we will see about the women's movement. Now about the women's movement. Here the nature and the scope of women's movement in India has been the subject of considerable debate. So here the last 2 decades has been continuous articulation of the women's issue. So here the women's issues have gained the prominence in the academic, with the women's studies beginning to take a shape as an academic discipline. So here the given diversity of the cultures and the complexities of caste and class among the women in India. So here the women movements in the country throw up many issues and the phases of the women's movement in India. So here the women's movement in India can be better explained based on the changing nature of the demands and its associated ideologies in 5 phases. So here in first phase, the important leaders like Rani Lakshmi Bai and Halaya Bai Holkar and the Mukti Bai, etc., whose main focus was self-rule and the encouragement of women into the socio-political domain of the country. But here later in the same phase, women have fight for the voting rights also. In second phase, that is from 1915 to 1947, here the women have actively participated in the nationalist movement for independence, and greatest leaders were like Sarojini Naidu and the Durgabai Deshmukh and the Annie Besant and others also there. And in third phase, that is from the 1947 to 1970, here the women in India fought for political, social and economic equality. So some of them have become the prominent in political domain. And in fourth phase, that is from the 1970 to 1990s, here women in India demanded the autonomy and identify, which has resulted in the emergence of feminist doctrines. So this is also led to the assertion of rights by women and initiatives by a state towards the empowerment. So in the contemporary phase, that is from the 1990s to till date, here women in India perceive an inherent systemacy between the rights of women and the illogical sustenance here. So this has resulted in the evolution of a new doctrine, namely the ecofeminism. So in addition, here the women have also exhibited the solidarity towards other identity movements such as Dalit movement, tribal movements, environmental movements, and the separate state movements. So this is also the quite evident in a separate state movement for the formation of Telangana. Exactly. Here the Telangana Arm Struggle was a radical peasant movement against the oppressive socio-economic structure prevalent in the region of the Hyderabad state. So here the active involvement of the Communist Party in this movement gave it an ideological coherence and the radical political content. So here one of the remarkable feature of the movement was large scale participation of women. Exactly. And the principal sources of the subjugation was not capitalism but feudalism. Here the Telangana women actively joined and participated in the activities of the armed and the guerrilla forces also. They also took part in non-coming operations like taking out the stencils and the nursing the wounded from the movement and cooking and helping men in setting up for the makeshift dens, and also they used to carry the letters by serving as a courier in the movement. Great. So here the two important events that sparked the entry of women in the Telangana movement. One was Chakali Alamma and other was the Kamalamma. Here the women entered the mainstream of Telangana movement with the support of communist parties. So here the famous among the women Telangana leaders are the Mallu Swaraja, Priyamvada and Athula Kamala Devi and Kamalamma and Pramila and Tapi Rajamma and Chakali Eliamma and Kausabi Mohiuddin and Veramma. Whereas the significant women guerrilla fights were Ramulamma, Rangamma, Tirupalamma, Savitramma, Narsamma, Venkatamma, Nagamma, Lachaka, Sitaka and Sugnamma. So there were the certain training centers known as the akhadas exclusively for the women to get the train in self-defense during the attacks of Razakars here. And here the women in separate Telangana movement. Here during the post-independent period in Telangana region, many prominent women leaders such as Sangam Lakshmi Bai and the T. An Sadalakshmi and Lakshmi Kathamma, J. Ishwari Bai, Sarojini Pullareddy, Rhoda Mistry and other contributed towards the cause of women's liberation here. And they mobilized women from the marginalized and the weaker sections and demand protection against the social and cultural evil bluffing in the Telangana region. So here J. Ishwari Bai was very vocal in the legislature and highlighted the injustice meted to the Ishwari Bai. And here a trust was started to reach out to the marginalized women. So here the Sadalakshmi fought for the inclusion of the women in the Devasthanam trust of the temple in the region. So here after the women's movement, now we will see about the environmental struggles here. Here the women concern and the environment in terms of the problems of pollution and its impact back to the ancient period here. Here the of the epidemics during the medieval ages in different parts of the world was the result of air and the water pollution only. The concern for the soil conservation practices were present in China, India and Peru as early as 2000 years ago. So here the public activism leading to the various struggles and the movements on the environmental issues in a modern phenomena. Exactly. And here the transformation of environmental movements into the political expression has begun in the latter half of the 20th century and establishment of green political movements, non-governmental organizations and environmental political parties such as Green Party in Germany were the important developments. Here in India, the Chipko movement by the Sundarlal Bhaguna against the deforestation in Uttaranchal, and here the Narmada Bachao Andolan against the construction of a big dam in the state of Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh, and here the Silent Valley movement against the hydroelectric project in Kerala, and Beliapal movement against the missile and the bauxite movement testing rage in Orissa, and Kundankulam movement against the nuclear power project in Tamil Nadu can be seen the cited the major examples of the environmental movements here. The region of Telangana also knew the emergence of the number of environmental struggles here. Here the struggles against the proposed nuclear power plant at Nagarjuna Sagar and struggle against the spread of industrial pollution in Petancheru in Medak district, and here the struggles against the uranium mining and the fluorus in Nalgonda district, and the struggles against the open cast coal mining in Adilabad, Karimnagar, Khammam and Warangal districts, and the struggles against the granite quarries in Karimnagar district are the important struggles in the region here. So here pollution is a process of converting the land, water, air and other parts of the environment dirty and unsafe or unsuitable to use. So this is done through the introduction of the contaminants into the natural environment. They are the several types of pollution, namely as air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, land pollution, noise pollution, light pollution and the radioactive pollution, thermal pollution and the industrial pollution are there. So here the main concern of this unit is issue in pollution under the Telangana region and the aspects related to it, like the industrial pollutions in Patancheru and the uranium mining issues and struggles and the surface open cast coal mining and the fluoride water problems in Nalgonda. So by this environmental struggles we have completed our chapter 7th, that is social political movements and environmental struggles in Telangana. Thank you.